This is once again Soapbox After Dark. It seems like I'm having a lot of soapboxes after dark. Again, I am an insomniac, unfortunately, but it's unfortunate for me. However, I guess for the audience or anybody who likes these videos, it is your lucky day. So there's news afoot. Now, my day has been spent either on the road or doing a radio show. I did 2 shows today. I did one on By Any Means Necessary, and I did Fault Lines this morning. And between that, there was a 3-hour drive back to Richmond and a 2-hour drive to this radio station. So I am dead tired. So if I am low energy, forgive me. But I wanted to talk about news. Now, there is big events taking place abroad across in Britain. You can see the image on the background, so you can have some image or some idea what we're talking about, the context. This is Britain. And if we're talking about Britain, most likely we will be talking about Brexit. Several votes took place today. Now, as you remember, the Prime Minister's deal was struck down. In her deal being struck down, meaning people didn't vote for that deal, something needed to take place, or something needs to take place. They leave on March 29th. Something needs to take place. And at this point, you can imagine there's a hair on fire feel around Parliament when you listen to these guys. Some of these guys are utterly dejected when they're talking about the events that are taking place with regards to Brexit, because the fact of the matter is they have no idea what's going to take place. Now, so several votes took place today. These votes, take a look at this, because these are momentous votes. This flip right here. This first one.
The ayes to the right, 312. The noes to the left, 308.
That ruled out no deal Brexits, meaning that ruled out no deal Brexits. Theresa May, if she wanted to, could no longer have a no deal Brexit. Now, the question that should leap to your mind, like almost immediately before I even get the words out, is, well, wait a minute. How can you have a no deal Brexit? How can you bar the door on an exit in a negotiation? You and I are having a conversation on X, and for whatever reason you say, I'm not leaving here without a deal, and I say, fine. The deal is I'm going to take everything with this one little morsel, and you're going to be happy with it because you just told me that you're not leaving here without a deal, and the only deal I'm giving you is that one tiny morsel. Like, it makes no sense. You're negotiating over something, and the person says, I am not leaving here without a deal. And they say, fine, here's the worst deal possible. Take it or leave it. Well, you can't leave it because you just said you can't leave without a deal. That's so bizarre. I find that utterly bizarre. But that said, it constrains the behavior of Theresa May, meaning it once again constrains what she can do. This is Parliament wrestling powers away from the Prime Minister. This is amazing to watch. Here's another one. Let's watch another one. This is a vote to delay Brexit, which, of course, I mean, you would have to delay Brexit, right? If you have a situation where you've just voted down the only deal that was on the table, and beyond voting down the only deal that was on the table, you also voted down leaving without a deal. So not only was the deal that we put up not good enough, in which case we have to push that away, you've also said that leaving without a deal is off the table. So what are you going to do? The deal that you had, well, you just pushed that off the table. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? So logically, it follows that even though Theresa May continuously said they were leaving on the 29th of March, this is them begging for delay.
The ayes to the right, 412. The noes to the left, 202.
Thank you.
The ayes to the right, 412. The noes to the left, 202. So the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Unlocked.
They're ripping powers away from her one after the next. Now, in this case, delay the vote. They're delaying the vote for several months, or they really say want to. And let me explain why I say want to. While it is true that they've taken no deal off the table, while it is also true that they've thrown away the only deal that they had available to them, it's logical to ask for a delay. But they have to ask for a delay. This is not something they can unilaterally do. They have to ask for it. This was them asking for a delay. It is up to the member states. Each and every one of the 27 EU states would have to say yes to this. Now, most likely they will say yes, because they don't want Britain crashing out of the EU any more than Britain wants to crash out of the EU. So, a second thing. They voted against a second referendum. They voted against a second referendum. Now, understand why. This is, again, somewhat of a logic thing. If you consider yourself to be in a democratic system, you're in a democratic government, great, whatever that is. However that looks, if you have some agency, meaning within the population itself, to change the governance structure of your country, then you are in some level of a democratic system. In that democratic system, where the people themselves are supposed to be the thing that ultimately is making a choice on the direction of the society, if you tell them you can vote on this, and then after they vote on this, you don't do the thing that they voted on, and not just that, have another referendum until you get the answer that you want. That's a problem. All of them realize that's a problem from the standpoint of governance, and this idea that it's a democratic order, that's problematic. Now, the people who are pushing for the second referendum don't care that that's problematic. They want a second referendum. The goal is to get a particular objective accomplished. That objective is second referendum. So, fair enough, but they've just voted that down. And for the last point, wrestling powers away from the Prime Minister. In a vote of, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 2014 to 2012, like it was 2-vote difference. Parliament, or elements of the Parliament, tried to wrestle the powers away from the Prime Minister. They tried to essentially take control of the reins, take the reins of Parliament, take Brexit. If they would have won that vote, and keep in mind, they only lost by 2 votes, they would have been able to set off a series of initiatives that, again, would have constrained the powers of the Prime Minister. These are amazing, amazing events that are taking place in Britain. I don't necessarily know how much of the world is watching, but oh my God. And I suspect that the world is watching, because even Fox News had the votes on today. Even Fox News. It's amazing. Let's see if there's anything else that I missed. All right, let's flip to the New York Times just to make sure I don't miss anything. With just 15 days left, Britain is scheduled to leave the European Union and no consensus on how to do it. Right. By the narrow margins, Prime Minister Theresa May beat back a power play by lawmakers who wanted to wrestle control of Brexit process from her. They also voted against holding a second referendum on the matter. Parliament has twice rejected Theresa May's proposal withdrawal agreement by resounding margins. Yes, resounding margins is a magnificent understatement. They hemmed her in further on Wednesday by passing a measure opposing any attempt to leave without an agreement. Mrs. May remains in power but is seriously compromised. That is, again, a magnificent understatement. Many conservatives backed the anti-no Brexit motion against her wishes, and several members of her cabinet declined to vote against it, leading to speculation she's lost control of her party and the process. How is that speculation? How is that speculation? You win by 2-vote margin, barely keeping you in power, or at the very least, keeping your, let's say, powers as Prime Minister intact. Barely. Very barely. Lawmakers voted 412 to 202 on Thursday to seek a delay in Brexit's withdrawal from the EU. Again, that's going to have to be something that the European Union decides. Lawmakers try and fail barely to take control of Brexit. and this is the one I mentioned earlier, lawmakers tried their strongest bid to seize control of the Brexit process for Prime Minister Theresa May, but failed by a razor-thin margin vote of 314 to 312. That's what it was, not 214. 314, 312. The measure would have had Parliament take a series of indicative votes on what it wants to see in the Brexit deal. Though the votes would not have been binding on the government or Mrs. May, who is already caught between warring factions politically, they would have constrained her even further. She wins that by the slimmest of margins. Lawmakers rebuffed the idea of another referendum. I mentioned this one also. The British Parliament on Thursday rejected a measure calling for a second referendum on Brexit, dashing, for now, some activist hopes that the Britons will reverse themselves and remain in the European Union. Yeah, screw those tens of millions of people that wanted to leave, that voted to leave, and that won the election. May's deal is not dead yet. That's what I miss. Theresa May is trying to resurrect that rat carcass of a deal and try to put it before them one more time. As the dog that doesn't get kicked enough, she goes back into the guy's foot. I find this to be somewhat amazing. She's bringing this deal back again. She's bringing the deal back again. She tried for 3 months to get concessions on that bill and could not get the concessions necessary to get that bill through Parliament. Why on earth are you resurrecting this dead animal? But nevertheless, that's what she's doing. Let's talk about it. The collapse of discipline of Theresa May's government has been so severely lately that some of her lawmakers said that the best thing she could do is announce her departure, to leave. The best thing you can do for us in this moment is to walk away. Just walk away. Just go, man. Just go. The David Cameron bit. But far from planning her resignation, Mrs. May is not yet ready to give up on her own Brexit plan, whatever Parliament does on Thursday. She has been defeated on it twice before, and badly. Again, that is a monumental, magnificent understatement. But it's not impossible to say that she's lucky on the third time. That she gets lucky on her third time. If a key amendment passes on Thursday, lawmakers will hold quick-fire indicative votes. Yeah, I don't know why that word, for whatever reason, in my head is like indicative. Yeah, that's the right word. And then this is what, maybe that's wrong. Votes on alternative Brexit plans on Wednesday. But Mrs. May would have Monday or Tuesday to preempt them and bring her unloved plan back to Parliament. God, they called it unloved. Again, a monumental, magnificent, gargantuan, breathtaking, knee-bending, criminally insane understatement. European leaders hint on a readiness for a long delay. So that's the other debate that may take place. Theresa May want 3 months, or they're talking about 3 months. The European Union may say, I want you for 2 years. This too may end up being somewhat of a negotiation. Now, can Theresa May turn down the European Union, whatever the European Union asks for, seeing as they said they wanted a no-deal Brexit? Meaning, you've already barred the door that you can't leave without a deal. And if the thing that's going to stop you from getting a deal is that this goes out for 2 years, aren't you kind of stuck with having it go out for 2 years? You have no negotiating space at this point. You've ruled out no deal, meaning you've ruled out the ability to walk away from the table. When the guy says, all right, you're going to put up $20 and I'm going to put up a box of shit and piss. It's like, well, you've just said you can't leave the table, buddy, so you're going to be taking this home. Yeah. Fascinating events that are taking place in Britain. I'm going to continue to cover these events because I think these are amazing. So, let's see. We have people here. All right. I don't think anybody would be interested in this but me. Parliament would vote for soft Brexit. May did not whip against it, but she is pushing a harder Brexit that needs Labour to accept to pass. Labour is not going to give her any votes on this. You're going to have some people that may leave the Labour Party in this kind of big dramatic show of things. But ultimately, Labour is trying to win. Fuck the country. Labour is trying to win. And for Labour to win, Labour wants another election. Now, they may not necessarily get that another election, but they may get something that's favorable to them, even if it's somewhat the capitulation or the collapse of this government. If Labour assists Theresa May in passing her deal. Let me ask a secondary question. Why would Labour, if Labour is trying to advance itself in Britain and it thinks it's the best thing for Britain, why on earth would it do anything to assist May in this? Now, you can say they're Brits, and that the fact that they're Brits should go above and beyond the fact that, you know, the issues of party. Yes, in an ideal world, but as you all know, this is not an ideal world. Hey, Theresa May knows that also. With that, what is that? The work, the credit plan, the universal credit plan, where those people were in desperate, dire straits. Some people even losing their houses. At the policies that Theresa May was implementing. Not to mention the knife crimes that she's not doing anything about. Not to mention the NHS. I remember at one point they were talking about ambulances being piled up and people dying in the ambulances because the resources weren't invested into the NHS to the degree that they needed to be invested into the NHS. So, you know, I can kind of feel sorry for Theresa May. Then I think about that stuff, and not so much. So I'll leave that here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all. I will probably see you again because I have another one that I want to do when, again, news that is taking place right now. So I kind of want to do it now. Thanks all. See you in a few.